It's becoming increasingly common for people to build up their food supply, with a growth in pantry stock of up to 3,400%. Many Americans already started to buy food for the winter, dreading the occurrence of shortages just as seen earlier this year. As a result, not everyone will be able to afford food in the near future. The U.S. is set to endure a hunger crisis, and over 54 million Americans might likely confront hunger by the end of the year. Investigating this extremely troubling country, we consider the negative consequences it will have on millions of American households in this video. Americans began panic buying shelf-stable food and cleaning supplies in March, leaving store shelves bare and unwittingly contributing to a supply crunch. Now, grocery store owners have declared they have been planning for a second rise in the stockpiling tendency. But now that big purchases has started, they appear apprehensive about having enough to attend the demand. Due to many natural disasters this year, as well as big manufacturers' instructions for farmers to stop producing and butcher their livestock, local output has been severely impacted. It's worth noting that many stores in smaller towns and rural areas were never fully replenished after the initial round of supply shortages, so they couldn't afford to stock up in preparation. There are still shortages, despite the claims of certain companies that they are better prepared than before. The main issue for food companies is not only to restore the inventories that were reduced at the beginning of the year, but keep it adequately refilled during the approaching winter, and most crucially, to still have sufficient accessible commodities once the holiday season is finished. Many companies said they don't expect its inventories to come back to normal levels until next year, since consumers are still storing as much food as they can, which throws further pressure on companies across the industry. However, when demand is high and the offer is low, prices tend to increase. In other words, in the face of enormous unemployment and the absence of new stimulus packages, those who still have a source of income will have it at their stockpiles, but those who don't are likely to live with food insecurity. According to Feeding America's survey, more than 54 million Americans will be hungry by December, making this country's hunger crisis the worst in history. Worldwide, an extra 100 million people or more could potentially be facing starvation this year. Analysts indicate that we're in the midst of a health crisis. We're in the midst of an economic crisis. We're in the midst of a social justice crisis, particularly here in the United States, and I think we're in the midst of a leadership crisis as well. Families had to contend with bare cabinets once more by the end of August as viral cases spiked in the Midwest. The sound of rising crop and livestock prices could be heard in the aisles of the supermarket. Bread prices rose by about 20% in June, while meat prices rose by nearly 17%. While government officials continue to fight over the provision of extra stimulus, more households are falling into a state of poverty. In brief, despite certain food manufacturers and retail chains have been bolstering efforts to support the demand and avoid supply shortages, increasing prices and the deteriorating conditions of the labor market will continue to elevate food insecurity to new levels.